So in this video, we're going to talk about the vector dot product. Uh, and it's just another way of multiplying, uh, inner scalar. We're multiplying inner or scalar product. We're just multiplying vectors, to be honest with you. And maybe we're given two vectors. And the idea is that if I take vector A and I dot it into vector B, then we say this is equal to AX times BX plus AY times BY plus AZ times BZ. Okay, so that's the idea. All we're doing is multiplying the components and adding them together. Now the magnitude of the dot product, so maybe if you want to find the magnitude of A times B dotted into B, well, that's just equal to the magnitude of A times the magnitude of B cosine of the angle between them. Okay, so that's the general idea. So maybe let's look at some problems to kind of get the idea here. So what if I have this problem here? I have the force is equal to 6 newtons and we have some arbitrary vector k is equal to 11 meters. Okay, and theta is 50 degrees. Find the dot product. Okay, well, in this case, we can only find the magnitude, right? Well, we can't find the dot product because we're only given the magnitude. And so essentially the dot product is essentially the magnitude, to be honest with you. And so F dotted into K, well, that's just equal to 6 newtons times 11 meters cosine of 50. Okay. So that's literally, this is all just a plug and chug. And we talk about the dot product. And so this would be 6 times 11 cosine of 50. And so that will give us approximately 42.4 newton meters. Okay. So again, nothing difficult. Now, what if we wanted to find the angle between them? Okay, what if you want to find the angle of the between two vectors? Okay, how would we do it? So I have this question here. It says use the dot product to find the angle between B and C. Okay. Well, what do we have? What equation do we have that relates some sort of angle? Well, we know the magnitude, right? So we know we know the magnitude of B dot into C. That is equal to the magnitude of B times the magnitude of C cosine of the angle between them. Okay. So you could imagine if I divide by BC, that by B times C, then I get the magnitude of B dot into C divided by the magnitude of B times the magnitude of C. Okay, that is equal to cosine inverse of the angle. No. That will be equal to cosine of the angle. What am I doing? So that will be equal to cosine of the angle. And so if I want to find theta, then we shall say theta is equal to cosine inverse of B dot into C, the magnitude of B dot into C divided by magnitude of B times the magnitude of C. Okay, so this is how we would find the angle. And so what does that mean? Let's solve it. Okay, so what is B dotted into C? Let's do that first. What is B dotted into C? Well, if I take B and dot it into C, well, that's simply B dot into C, that simply will be equal to 2 times 3 plus 0 times 3 plus 0 times 0. Okay. And so we know B dot into C, yeah, B dot into C, that will be equal to 6. Yeah, so B dot into C will be equal to 6. Okay, and we don't care about units for now. Let's worry about the calculation. So that would be equal to 6. So we already found B dotted into C. Okay, now the only thing we need to find is, the only thing we need to find is the magnitude of B, the magnitude of C. Okay, so the magnitude of B, well, all we're doing is the square root product. So if I take 2 squared plus 0 squared plus 0 squared. We know this is Pythagorean theorem, and that shall be equal to 2. Okay. Now what about C? If I take the magnitude of C, that shall be equal to the square root of 3 squared plus 3 squared plus 0 squared. Okay. If I plug all that in my calculator, what do I get? I take the square root of 3 squared plus 3 squared. I get 3 square root of 2. Okay, so I got 3 square root of 2. So now that we have the B dotted into C, we have their magnitudes. All we gotta do is just plug and chug. So we know this becomes cosine inverse of 2 times 3 square root of 2. Well, no, my apologies. B times C is 6. I'm sorry about that. So this would be cosine inverse of 6 divided by 2 times 3 square root of 2. Okay. And this will be equal to theta. Okay. Now simplifying a little bit more, this becomes cosine inverse of 6 divided by, well, 2 times 3 is 6. So this becomes 6 square root of 2. And if I could simplify this as they're being multiplied, and that is equal to theta. So therefore, cosine inverse of 1 over the square root of 2 will be equal to theta. If I plug out my calculator and I get cosine inverse of 1 over 2, theta will just be equal to 45 degrees. Okay, so that's how we find the angle between two vectors using the dot product. So let's try one more. So what if, what is the dot product of A dotted into B if A is equal to that and B is equal to that? And what is the angle that's being made between the two? Well, again, we got to find A dotted into B, because we say that A dotted into B, the magnitude of that is equal to magnitude of A times the magnitude of B cosine of the angle between them. Okay, so the magnitude of this is equal to the magnitude of A times the magnitude of B cosine of the angle between them. So what is A dotted into B? Well, A dotted into B, that is simply equal to 3 times 1 plus 2 times negative 4 plus 0 times 0. AX times BX, AY times BY, AZ times BZ. Okay, so if we get this, this becomes 3 minus, so this becomes 3 minus 8 plus 0. So 3 minus 8 is what? Negative 5. So we know that A dotted into B is equal to negative 5. Now we need to find the magnitude. So magnitude of A, well, that's just equal to the square root of 3 squared plus 2 squared plus 0 squared. If we take that 3 squared plus 2 squared, we get that to be equal to square root of 13. And if we take the magnitude of B, well, that's just equal to square root of 1 squared plus negative 4 squared plus 0 squared. And what is that equal to? Okay, well, let's see. We have 1 squared plus negative 4 squared. We just get that to be equal to square root of 17. Okay. So that's nice. So therefore, we know that now we can just plug into our formula. So we know that A dotted into B, the magnitude of that is equal to the magnitude of A times the magnitude of B cosine of the angle between them. And so we know what A dotted into B is. That's just negative 5. We know what the magnitude of A is. That's 13. We know what the magnitude of B is. That's 17. Okay. And we have cosine of the angle. Okay. So if I divide, well, this becomes negative 5 over, well, remember, what if I take the square root of 13 and I multiply it by the square root of 17, just to simplify a little bit quicker? Well, in this case, I'll get the square root of 222. So what I did was just multiply and divide by these two. and that's just equal to cosine of theta. So therefore, cosine inverse of -5 divided by the square root of 221 is equal to theta. Okay. And so if I take out my calculator and put cosine cosine inverse of -5 divided by square root of 221, then I get theta to be equal to 109.65 degrees. Okay. So that's how we find the angle between them and how we deal with the vector dot product. As you could see how we found the dot product here. Just a little bit of correction I wanted to point out here. This should have not been an absolute value sign, but again, when we talk about the magnitude, so if that's causing any confusion, then no. What we're saying is that B dot into C, the magnitude of this is magnitude of B times the magnitude of C, cosine of the angle. And so if I'm looking at this, then we know what B dot into C which is a dot product. Okay, so I just want to clarify that.